And again, on behalf of myself and everybody here, it's terrific to see all the folks that came on out, and I thank you for the honor.
Wow. How do you follow that up? The 7 highest peaks in the 7 continents. The only thing I've ever climbed is my staircase. And I'm sitting at a table with a war veteran. Oh my God. Mike, well-deserved, and congratulations to you and your family. It's a very nice honor to have all of those folks here share in this excitement with you. It's something you truly deserved. Certainly you are a distinguished citizen. It's an honor and privilege for me to be a part of this and have you on the stage, have myself on the stage with you. You know, it's a privilege for all of us to have the opportunity to help scouting thrive and grow in our community, and to have a role in helping young men and young women grow up as successful citizens in a society that is not as simple as it once was when you or I, just a few years ago, were youths. More than ever, young Americans need the character building and the leadership skills and the lessons in personal responsibility that scouting programs offer. We are committed to giving our youth the tools and the experiences, the knowledge, the skills, all of those tools that make the world a better place. And our mission may be lofty, but with your help, it's attainable. The Boy Scout program, in my judgment, is a primary major contributor to developing good, solid citizens. Young people who grow to be older people who have self-esteem and the leadership skills we so are in need of in this country. I think you all agree. In 2013, the Western Massachusetts Council will positively impact the lives of more than 7,000 youth. And for scouting to continue to grow and reach even more young people, we need your generous financial support. I want to thank all of our sponsors, corporate and personal. For those of you who may be guests of our corporate sponsors or folks who have provided you scholarship, I'd like to encourage you to make a contribution to scouting. On your tables, you'll see some information, some Friends of Scouting brochures, nice, heavy printed brochures. And I'd like you all to take a look at them and consider making an investment in the future of our country. Making an investment for as little as $155 to sponsor a young person in scouting. There's different levels of investment that you could make, and I hope you'll consider that very seriously. What you can do can make a difference, and I hope you'll empower yourselves to make that difference. If you're able to support scouting in Western Mass, please fill out the form. And in deference and in consideration of you doing so, we're going to show a little video to give you time to fill it out.
Scouting programs have for decades instilled in youth the values found in the Scout Oath and Law.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout Law.
To help other people at all times, and to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
Today, these values are just as relevant in helping youth grow to their full potential as they were in 1910, when the movement was founded.
All these things build character into a young man that he takes with him into adulthood and makes him a much better citizen. And that's why Scouting to me has always been an organization I've always wanted to help. I think is one of the best youth organizations that we can have in this country.
It makes me feel like I'm doing something worthwhile. The whole scouting program's like that. I'm one part of something.
And that started early. Started in Boy Scouts and working through the process, becoming an Eagle Scout. This is very much of a reflection of ambition. This is one of the ways in which we learn it is by working our way up through the ranks.
There are three kinds of people in the world. One who make things happen, one who watch things happen, and the other who don't even know it happened. So scouting, being a scout, we rank in number one. We make things happen.
With your help, Scouting will continue providing youth the opportunity to try new things, give service to others, build self-confidence, and reinforce ethical standards. These learning experiences carry forward into Scouts' adult lives. And in fact, more than 80% of men who were Scouts agree the values they learned in Scouting are still very important to them today.
Too often in our society, we look all around us and we see businessmen who steal, we see students who cheat, we see politicians who lie, and they've forgotten one of the fundamental elements of leadership, and that is the elements of the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. And it's important for Scouting to remind people that, in fact, character does count, and it makes a huge difference in terms of success or failure. And above all, it makes a huge difference when you look back at the end of your life and ask yourself how you lived it. And if you can say you did a pretty good job of living the Scout Oath and Law, you probably also had a pretty successful life.
When I grow up and hopefully get married and have children, and hopefully I'll have a son, and I want to bring him through Scouting like my father brought me through Scouting. I think that would mean a lot to me to have a son and for him to experience everything and enjoy everything that I've experienced.
Your investment in our Scouting program is needed to ensure the future of America.
Does anyone need more time? Need a pen? It's my honor at this moment to introduce the new executive director of the Western Mass Council. He started in August of last year, David Cruzy. He was very instrumental in tonight's event. He works tirelessly for Scouting, and I want to thank him and introduce him to you now. David.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being part of this wonderful evening. Scouting makes a huge impact on the lives of the more than 7,200 youth that we serve each and every year through the Scouting programs here in Western Massachusetts. As you heard Chase talk about the progression from Tiger Cub to Eagle Scout, all the great opportunities for character development, leadership training, and of course, lots of fun and great friendships that develop through Scouting. The Scouting programs we offer touch so many lives and make a difference in the lives of the Scouts that lasts long after they leave the ranks of youth membership. Indulge me here for a moment. If you are or were a Scout, or if you have a family member that is or was a Scout, stand up. Get some exercise. There's a big dinner. A family member who's a Scout or was a Scout, or if you, that's most of the room. That's pretty impressive. Now stay standing for a minute. If you were never a Scout yourself, just had a family member, sit down. All right? If you joined Scouts yourself in the last 20 years, sit down. All right, the young bloods have sat down. So if you joined Scouts since 1993, sit down. All right, if you joined Scouts in the last 30 years, since 1983, sit down. 1973, I'd be sitting now if I could. If you joined Scouts since 1950, in the last 50 years, since 1963, we're going to find out who our oldest alumni is here. If you joined Scouts in the last 60 years, since 1953, sit down. All right, I see Mr. John Glaze is the oldest Scout in the room. Congratulations. I know John attended the 1937 Jamboree. My dad wasn't even a glimmer in his parents' eyes yet. I want to thank all our event sponsors, Excel Dryer, Epicenter, St. Germain. Thank you for stepping up to the table and sponsoring this event big time. I also want to thank our premier table sponsors, AAA of Pioneer Valley, Fentry Industries, Eastern States Exposition, and again, St. Germain. Thank you all so much for what you've done for the youth of our community. It means a lot to me personally, and I know it means a lot to the kids that are growing up in scouting and getting the character development that we also intend. I also want to thank all of our table sponsors listed on the screen as well as in your program, and as well as everyone that is here tonight. Thank you for all you've done for our kids. I appreciate it. I really do. Some of the folks here are getting some good exercise today. Would all our previous distinguished citizens who have received the award in the past years please stand up? Please stand up. Dennis, I know you're getting a lot of exercise. Stephen? So we have a few here. Thank you very much. Thank you for all you've done to make our community a better place. I appreciate it. And of course, Mike Maddie, congratulations. Thank you for all you've done. At this time, I would like to thank tonight's dinner chairman, Gene Cassidy. Gene, come on up. Thank you for all your leadership tonight and those last few months getting us together. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. And a little something there for your credenza. And thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, David, and thanks to all of you. This is a humbling experience for me now to have the opportunity to introduce our guest speaker, Ron Young. You've all read about him. Boy, there's a lot to be said. For much of Ron's life, I guess he could be considered just sort of a typical American, the product of these United States, a young man with southern roots from Georgia. He dreamed of flying and adventure. He became an Eagle Scout, and he studied engineering in college. And it was during his college years that he learned that he could be trained to fly Apache attack helicopters by joining the military. He pursued his dream and enlisted and was soon involved in United States military operations. He's had quite an incredible experience, and he's going to tell us about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him since the experience that he's going to talk about. Ron has worked recently as a cable news special contributor. He's competed as a finalist. As a matter of fact, he almost won the CBS The Amazing Race. He's currently serving as a White House political appointee to the Housing and Urban Development Department. He's worked as a press advanceman for the president. And I'm going to let Dan Rather talk to you about Ron. So let's give Ron a warm round of applause, and then we can focus on the screen.
On the night of March 23rd, 18 Apache helicopters like these set out across a sea of sand. It had been happening all over Iraq. These pictures were taken with other battalions in other battles, but the idea was the same. The Apaches flew low and fast, taking fire and firing back.
Target's coming up 12 o'clock, just left of the center of the tree line.
Roger.
Clearing the decks for American ground troops.
2623 is inbound.
What none of the pilots knew on that night of March 23rd was that this time, the Iraqi Republican Guard had planned an ambush, using cell phones to communicate the Apache positions as the helicopters swept toward Karbala. There, in the darkness, a deadly hornet's nest was waiting.
It's the wildest laser show you've ever seen in your life, all that stuff going on. And next thing you know, just that fast you're in it, and bullets are going by you, and it's intense.
If people saw the pictures of Baghdad, it looked like the 4th of July when the war started 12 years ago. If they could remember those pictures, they could remember the intensity of the tracers coming up. You take that about 10 times, and that's what we went through.
All I could think to myself was, holy crap, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And I mean, bullets are whizzing within inches of your head.
Eventually, their Apache weapons system got knocked out. Ron Young was unable to return fire. David Williams struggled to stay in the air, by then missing one engine and running out of options. By the next morning, Iraqi TV was airing images of the downed Apache surrounded by chanting crowds. A farmer bragged to the cameras that he had shot the chopper down, and the pilots' helmets, gear, and papers were examined as though they had fallen to earth from outer space. Inside the city of Karbala, the pilots were being questioned for hours. It was the world's first glimpse of the two pilots as prisoners. To go with the faces, the Pentagon released the barest facts. David Williams, 30 years old, married with 2 children. Ronald Young, 26, born and raised in Georgia. The men looked angry and afraid. Amid the heavy American bombing, the 2 men were moved into a poorly designed and deteriorating prison with thick walls and a frighteningly thin roof.
This prison had a tin roof on it.
A tin roof.
You know, we all know the phrase like rain on a tin roof, but bombs on a tin roof is something else.
Good Lord.
By the grace of God, they missed it. I don't know how.
For 11 days and nights, Williams and Young listened to the bombing of Baghdad and shouted to each other through the walls and over the noise. Soon, American troops were streaming into Baghdad. But by the time the statue of Saddam hit the ground on April 9th, the prisoners were gone. Chaos now reigned in the capital. But in a small village 3 hours north of Baghdad, it was quiet. The 7 American prisoners were bound and blindfolded and locked inside a house, helpless and under constant guard. The prisoners had little to do but listen and try to figure out how far away their American rescuers might be.
We knew that the guys were on the ground because of the type of aircraft that were flying that we could hear, and we knew the guys were coming in.
They didn't know that a Marine commander in their area had gotten a tip that changed everything.
The commander, I guess somebody had gone to him and said there's Americans at a house being held, and without...
Iraqi people.
I know, yeah.
And he acted on it. He said, okay, we're going to get them.
They emerged wearing the filthy pajamas they'd had on for weeks. Ragged but relieved, the prisoners were taped climbing into an American vehicle, their faces a reflection of how differently each dealt with their trauma. Ron Young was 25 pounds lighter and exuberant. David Williams was 25 pounds lighter and exhausted.
I got off the plane and my mother standing there, and she had made a remark about wanting to hug me for 30 minutes. So she tried.
I might let you hug him now.
Hey, what's going on? It's something that you never thought would happen again in your life. And it's something that you value deeply after a situation like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm humbled. I appreciate it. Thank you. So, does anybody have any questions? No, I'm just kidding. It's truly an honor for me to be here and to have this opportunity. I want to thank the West Mass Council for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank Gene for that introduction, and also Dan Rather. We're close friends. And Matt, I want to say, congratulations, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting Scouting. Before I get started, I kind of want to tell you something that happened to me today. Sometimes, as you can tell, I'm from the South, if you couldn't tell. But when you travel from the South to the North, the cultural difference sometimes kind of hits you right in the face. And for you who have been to the South, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so today it hit me in the face. And so I was going to get on this plane. I was in Philadelphia and getting ready to fly up here to Hartford. And as I'm walking onto the plane, I see the flight attendant, and he's kind of looking at me, smiling, has a polite face on. And he's almost looking at me like he knows me. And as I'm walking into the plane, he's still kind of staring at me, and I'm looking at him. He says, "Doc." I'm like, does he think he knows me, like I'm a doctor or something like that? And about then it hit me. I hit the doorway of the plane with my head. And my ears started ringing, and he's like, "I told you to dock." And I'm like, "Oh, duck." And he's like, "Doc, duck, potato, potato, whatever." So I guess it's context. I only heard one word out of him, and I didn't realize that's what I was supposed to take from it. And I also wanted to share something else with you I think that you'll enjoy. But a couple of weeks ago, I had spoken, or this is really about 2 months ago now, but I spoke in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And so I finished the speech, and the next morning I'm going down to jump in this cab. It's really early in the morning, and this guy's going to take me back to the airport so I can fly back to Atlanta. And so it's still dark outside. I throw my stuff in, and I get into the cab, and this guy turns to me, and he goes, "Where do you want to go?" And he startled me because I recognized his accent. This guy was definitely Middle Eastern. And, I tell him, "Okay, I want to go to the airport." And he goes, "Okay, I'll take you there." And I'm like, "Okay." So we're driving toward the airport, and finally curiosity gets the better of me, and I ask the guy, I'm like, "So, buddy, where are you from?" And he kind of half turns to me, and he goes, "I am from Iraq." And I'm like, "Really?" Because as you can see, this might make me nervous. I've ridden in a van with an Iraqi before, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. So I'm thinking to myself, do I need to go ahead and choke him out? Is there something I'm not catching on to? I'm looking at the exits to make sure he hasn't locked me in the vehicle or something like that. And so eventually, I get myself under control, and I start talking to him. I'm like, "So what do you think about what's happening in Iraq and where we're now at?" And he starts saying something about, he's lost friends, family members, security's a big issue. He's glad Saddam's gone. And we talked for a little while, and we're talking about the Sunnis and the Shias and then the Kurds up in the north and some of the problems that they had. And finally, he kind of turns to me and goes, "You know what? You know a lot about Iraq. Have you ever been there?" And I looked at, and this is the only time I'm going to tell you kids you can do this, but I looked him dead square in the eyes, and I said, "No, sir." I was not going to fall for the old "have you been to Iraq" trick. He'd get on the phone, "We've got him again." I couldn't take the chance. But like I said, it's an honor to be here, and especially to represent something that means so much to me, and that is the Boy Scout movement. Because obviously I wouldn't be here talking to you if it wasn't for the Boy Scouts and the fact that I'm an Eagle Scout. But they've done so many different things in my life, and I just wanted to point out a few things that I take away from it that I think is really interesting. And that's, if you look, right now we have more than 300 million people living in the U.S. So between 1912 and 2012, you'd say there's well more than 300 million people who have lived. But if you look at how many Eagle Scouts have attained Eagle Scout rank, only 2 million of them have. So that's well less than 0.1% of the population as a whole who have attained the rank of Eagle. But if you look at the accomplishments of these people, it's really staggering what they've done in their life. 181 NASA astronauts were involved with Eagle Scouting, and that's 57.4% of all astronauts in general. 39 were Eagle Scouts. 37% of U.S. military academy members who were appointed to West Point as cadets were involved in scouting, and half of those were Eagle Scouts. 189 members of Congress right now were involved in the scouting program. 27 are Eagle Scouts. And 18 current U.S. governors participate in the program. 4 of them are also Eagle Scouts. And I'm saying this because if you want to know how to take a young person and get them to where they need to be in life, it's an organization like this. And I have to agree with Mr. Maddie that you know, sports are great. And I love sports, and I love football, and in the South, we really love some Georgia football. I'm not going to lie to you. Basketball, whatever. Georgia football is religion. And that's great, and it builds competition, but it doesn't build leadership like the Boy Scout structure does. When you have a guy who is trying to become an Eagle Scout, he's spending years to attain this goal. I mean, it takes years. You're going to move up through the rank structure. You're going to have to lead your peers. And if there's one group of people you parents out there who have kids that are their ages, it's not easy for kids to lead their peers at all. But it teaches them a lot about responsibility, leadership, just generally how to be a citizen. And it's definitely something that I've walked away from and used a lot in my life. You see, when I went through survival training in the military and the Army to prepare myself for a situation like I entered into, it wasn't the first time I was taught survival. That was actually in the Boy Scouts, learning how to build a fire, take care of yourself in bad and inclement weather if you get yourself lost, things like that, build shelters, all these things that these guys are learning while they're in camps. Also, something that as an aviator is very important is orienteering, how to read a map. I first learned that in the Boy Scouts, learned how to use a map and a compass and to terrain associate and to find my way. Because when you're in an aircraft and you're passing some of these zones that we were flying through that night, you had to hit a checkpoint plus or minus 20 seconds. If you didn't, then it wasn't going to be the enemy shooting you down, it was going to be the friendly guys as well. So stuff like this became very important, and I had a leg up on the people right out of the gate.